people in this. You believe that there are some people. That there are some people in this world that did not tune in to the Alliance Vlog podcast. Shame on you!
Shame on you! My name is Ella Envy, and I'm one half of the NWA Women's World Tag Team Champion.
And I'm Kenzie Paige, the other half of the NWA World Women's Tag Team Champion.
And you better go listen to the Alliance Vlog. What is it called again?
Podcast. Period.
Or you're ugly. Pretty and power approved.
Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance Vlog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Bocca.
Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby.
Are you ready?
Power.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm building an alliance.
God bless the internet.
Okay, let's party.
It's showtime.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, Jaden, DKM, and J. Cal.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J. Cal, and just remember, you can't please all the people all the time. Hell, you can't even please all the people some of the time. What you do is find the people that dig you and knock it out of the park for them. And that's what we try to do each and every Thursday night for you guys here on the Alliance Guys podcast. With me is Jaden and DKM. Gentlemen, say hi.
Salutations. Man, DK's got some serious...
Hello.
Hello. How are you today?
Good.
How are you enjoying California weather?
Kind of.
Kind of?
Actually, no, I'm not. Because back over here, it's over 100 degrees. And for somebody who usually likes it maybe around the 70s, 80s, this does not feel good, ladies and gentlemen. I did not mean to turn this into a newscast of the weather, but thank you for joining in.
Adios, muchacho.
Adios.
It's over 100 here in Jersey. How's it in Texas?
Oh, it's been over 100 for like 3 or 4 weeks now. It's, it's gotten to the point of, hey, look, it's 105, just like yesterday and the day before.
It was 106. It's 106 yesterday, and then it's supposed to be in the 90s come Monday, but can't happen fast enough. Hey, real quick, I want to say what's up to Luthez, Mike, Willie Bowen, Sam Retro, James Bell. What is up, gentlemen? Matthew Underwood, thank you guys for joining us here on this extremely hot podcast. That's because Jaden's here. And we're going to get talking about some wrestling here in just a minute. We have a lot of things to talk about, but first and foremost, if you guys weren't watching on Instagram Live, the late breaking news, this just handed to me, Tyrus is going to add the stipulation to his matchup against EC3 on the second night of the 75th anniversary pay-per-view, a bull rope match. And to sweeten the pot, he's putting his career on the line. Jaden, what do you think about that?
I heard a rumor that it's been stated that his health isn't in the highest order right now. Somebody told me, I won't say who, but I have a source that says he hasn't been very healthy recently. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
DKM, have you heard any rumors? Do you have any sources? What's going on with our pal Tyrus?
Well, I've heard lots of rumors, and I have lots of sources. But actually, in relation to this, I haven't heard much. Although I certainly don't doubt it. Tyrus is 50, and he has been overweight for a while. And, your first thought whenever you hear that the career is on the line is one of two things. Either that person's going to win, or that person's going to retire.
Kind of usually happens either way. I mean, that's kind of the odds either way.
well, but in other words, you kind of know who's going to win because, if EC3 were putting his career on the line, you would know that he's winning. But in this case, I think this might be a perfect out for Tyrus to get him out of the ring. The problem is if he just loses, then he's got to challenge for the title again, and they haven't been real big. I mean, he suffered one loss the entire time.
I'll find that out right now.
I mean, I can only remember him losing to Murdoch in their one-on-one title match. I don't remember him losing to anybody else.
Like, are you talking like complete win-loss record in the NWA?
Yeah. Like I mean, maybe he's had a count-out loss or something like that. Certainly hasn't been pinned or submitted.
So his first match in the NWA going back to March 21st, 2021, he beat Kratos at Back for the Attack. He beat Matthew Mims. He won a three-way match between Marche Rocket and Matt Cross. He took a time limit draw against the Pope. Didn't win the Battle Royal for the number one title shot. Defeated the Pope.
Yeah, they changed the rules in that Battle Royal, remember?
Yeah. Tyrus defeated Black G's and Jordan Clearwater. Tyrus defeated Kratos. Tyrus defeated the Pope for the title. Basically, Idolmania beat the end with the Pope. Tyrus beat Black G's. Tyrus beat Jordan Clearwater. Tyrus beat Scion. Tyrus defeated Jaden Roller.
I'll say I never wrestled him.
Yeah.
Tyrus defeated Rodney Mack. Scion versus Tyrus was a no contest, but it was also a slam challenge. Mims defeated Tyrus in a slams challenge, so that doesn't really count. Tyrus defeated Mims. Scion and Tyrus defeated the Ill Begotten. Tyrus defeated Odinson. Trevor Murdoch defeated Tyrus at the 74th. Tyrus defeated Mims. He had a no contest when Latimer, Murdoch, and then Tyrus took on Williams, Kratos, and the Pope. Tyrus defeated Murdoch and Cardona. Idolmania Sports Management defeated Joe Alonzo and La Rebellion. Blunt Force Trauma and Tyrus defeated Rolando and the Cardonas. Tyrus defeated Cardona. Tyrus defeated Rolando. Black G's and EC3 defeated Eric Jackson and Tyrus. Tyrus defeated Daga. Tyrus defeated...
Yeah, but Tyrus didn't take the pin on that.
No. So, no. The only really time that Tyrus has lost...
Mims and Murdoch.
Yeah, and he lost at the Midnight Riders Crockett Cup. Him and Adonis lost to Knox and Murdoch.
Singles matches only.
Yeah, so no.
I was going to say that, and he didn't take the pin in that one either.
No. Real quick, let's do some Tyrus jokes. Tyrus is so fat that he was liberated by rebels and became the People's Republic of Tyrus. The Pillsbury Doughboy Tyrus is the worst world. I thought it was going to be a joke, Willie. Damn it. Tyrus, the cholesterol commando.
That's closer.
That's
better. That's better. But yeah, so I kind of echo your sentiments, DK. It's like inevitably, if you are putting up a career match, why? And as we could tell so far, it doesn't seem like EC3 will be putting his career on the line. So that almost 100% ensures that he's going to lose unless Billy wants to swerve us.
Controversy.
Well, that's how Billy likes to do things, and it would be just as easy for Tyrus to win at 75 as it would be for him to lose. And I'm not convinced either way for sure yet. But
you're telling M. Night Corgan, Charlotte Corgan's gonna
work on that.
Yeah,
outsource it. Honestly, I thought that I didn't think Tyrus was going to show up, and I kind of thought tonight's press conference was going to be him saying, "Hey guys, I'm just not going to be able to do this," and him forfeit the title. That way, he never loses it. That way, if he ever decides he is healthy enough to get back to the ring, he can, and have that I never was beaten for the title type motif. If he's truly injured, like Jaden, you think he is, how is he going to compete in a bull rope match?
You have to move way less in a bull rope match. You do a lot of pulling and dragging and stalling and things like that, where you don't have to be a lot less motion-wise physical. And all you have to do is really kind of bleed. I ain't got time to bleed. I apparently don't have a Jesse Goodbody impersonation.
I was going to say, you had elements of a good Jesse impression, you just didn't get there. It was close. Yeah. I could hear it.
I never attempted one before. It's my first time.
So, not bad. Willie has another Tyrus. Tyrus is so dumb, he thinks a pharmacist is a lady who lives and works on a farm.
I heard Tyrus bought a new belt. You know what a belt for Tyrus is called?
A tire?
I was going to say the equator.
No. The other thing, and we'll get to this in a minute, but whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
Matthew Underwood. And then Willie brings up this point. How come Tyrus never wrestled Jack Stain, Blake Bulletproof Troop, Knox, or Bully Ray? Willie, I think we all know the answer to that. He just hasn't been ready to wrestle. I don't think he physically could. I think they wanted to use him as the best that they could and put him in a position where he could be world's heavyweight champion. But, look, he hasn't defended the title since the 312 pay-per-view, and that's going back now to April. And before that,
312. That's ironic. That's how many hot dogs he won in the last he ate in the last competition.
Who wins in a hot dog eating contest, him or Joey Chestnut?
He would eat Joey Chestnut.
He would eat Joey Chestnut as Joey Chestnut's eating hot dogs.
Yes.
Matthew Underwood said, if Nick Cage and Vikingo can have a believable match, EC3 can make this work. Karrion Kross does the best Jesse. Karrion Kross has an incredible Jesse Ventura. Have you heard it?
Yeah, I have, and so does Will Sasso.
They're both really good. Someone should make them do a Jesse off.
The Jesse off.
Illegal? Can you do that in public?
At the right venue, sure. Anything's possible in the World Wrestling Federation. Hey,
maybe in San Francisco.
Yikes. So there was also some controversy lately, and I'll say this, man. Yesterday, last night, whatever it was, when the NWA social media account typed whoop, whoop, and didn't have any context, my heart dropped a little bit. In fact, somebody who I'm friends with, the promoter out here in Southern California, no connection to the NWA whatsoever, never has, never will, nothing, said that he saw that tweet and his heart dropped because he thought that meant a returning wrestler would be coming back to the NWA. I'm sure you guys all know who we're talking about, and Marty Scurll, who famously goes whoop, whoop before he enters the venue, and the fans do it back to him. And I'll be honest, man, I was never more happier to see that it's the Insane Clown Posse coming to the NWA. I would take the ICP over Marty Scurll at this point. Jaden, what are your thoughts on now the ICP who have had matches, appearances with the WWE, WCW, ECW, and now an Impact? Now they're finally stepping down in the NWA.
I like how you say stepping down, like they're finally going down the hill, into worse and worse places they can get involved in. I never hated ICP. I wasn't a juggalo. I love their song Chicken Hunting. There's a few songs that I laugh at. I don't exactly say I like them, but they were there, and I never hated them as a lot of other people do. I also don't hate clowns. I never, so maybe that's why. But whatever. What are they there with? The Brothers of Funstruction? Is that what it's going to be?
Yep.
There's only one of them left, right?
Yeah. I don't really know. To be honest with you, my education on the ICP kind of stopped around 1999, 2000. I thought they were pretty cool, to be honest with you, when they came out with the Great Muda and Vampiro into the WCW atmosphere. I think they were going by the name of the Deadpool, no relation to the comic. I thought that was pretty awesome. I thought that was a lot of fun. That's all I kind of got from it.
There's the ICP sometimes treat wrestling more respectfully than some of the people in wrestling do nowadays.
Well, they would,
that should say a lot.
They would host their shows, the Juggalo Championship Wrestling, and that's very much the case. I know that they had Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana on some of their shows. I know that they've had a lot of like wrestlers on those shows. I remember watching the old VHS tapes of those shows. I'm not going to call them events, Jaden. I'm just not. They were shows, and they weren't that good. DK, we know that you're the standing juggalo here on the podcast. Tell us what you think about ICP being involved in the NWA.
DK's RBF game is real strong tonight.
Is RDS?
RBF.
Wrestling in space.
Oh. All right.
Except for me, it's just wrestling grumpy old bastard face.
It's the GOB, grumpy old bastard. Is that your rap name, DK? Grumpy old bastard?
Sure, I like that idea.
There used to be a wrestler in the area called himself the Angry Little Man.
The Angry Little Man?
Yeah.
Was that Rolando?
He was taller than Rolando.
Oh.
Then again, so was Jimmy Clydesdale.
R.I.P. Jimmy Clydesdale. So, I mean, I'll be honest, man.
Speaking of that, do we know the latest controversy about the height challenged?
No.
Because your buddy Hornswoggle's involved in it.
Are you talking about the Hollywood where they're like complaining about the next movie where they're maybe it's a remake of The Wizard of Oz and they're not going to use little people as the Munchkins?
It's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
The Seven Dwarfs. Okay.
But now it's not going to be Seven Dwarfs. It's going to be 7 magical creatures or something like that. And so, there's different ethnic groups in one dwarf. And so a lot of people have been playing, what's his name? The guy from Game of Thrones.
Peter Dinklage?
Yes, because he was somewhere giving an interview one time and he was blasting the idea of doing like a Seven Dwarfs movie or whatever. And Hornswoggle's come out and goes, well, that's mighty fine for a guy that's made a hell of a lot of money playing a dwarf in a major show. He goes, there's not very many places where a dwarf's going to play a top character. And he goes, and you have a chance for 7 of them here in Snow White. And so Hornswoggle's kind of been going around on television and across the world, because the interview I saw was actually from Australia, blasting Dinkle for his comment and blasting Disney for not using dwarves for the thing. And of course, other people are blasting because Snow White's Hispanic, Mexican. I'm not really sure.
I wonder where Brad Williams sits on this subject.
I
wonder where Brad Williams sits on this subject.
Who?
Brad Williams.
A little person comedian.
I mean, I wonder where he sits, which high chair he sits in.
I don't know. So,
there's there locally, and it's not. They're actually an international. Let me say that again. They are a nationally touring little person wrestling company that's based in Central Coast, California, and it's something like Midget Championship Wrestling, which I'm always like, wow, like I thought that was an offensive term for little people, but that's the promotion calling it, and the owner of the promotion is not a little person. He is a former wrestler, but he does have the entire show is featured with little people in the ring. So I guess there's some sort of understanding they could use that phrase, whatever. But they tour little bar. That's no pun intended. They tour bars all over the states. I've seen their shows as far as like Texas and Utah and Colorado, and they come out here to Southern California all the time. Only literally like an hour away from me. They're like almost 3 or 4 times a year. They do shows that are around this area. So like for the minis, the little people, I mean, at least in wrestling, there's a lot of opportunities, but I don't know how profitable those opportunities are.
We had a bar out here that once a month would feature. I think they called it midget wrestling too.
I mean, the same company.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I don't think they do it anymore. Well, I think bars change ownership. I think that's why they don't do it anymore. But yeah, for a couple of years, you could go once a month and watch the
pint-sized brawlers.
Yes.
So that
I don't know what term is acceptable anymore.
That wrestling promotion that I was just talking about, they're called Micromania Midget Wrestling. That's their full name. They're actually going to be like 10 minutes away from my house this Saturday.
That's a short trip.
I knew it. As soon as you said that, I knew Jaden was going to hit that joke.
And then they're in Hesperia, which isn't far either. But yeah, Micromania and their talents on the poster. It's 25 cents. You guys keep going. I'm gonna look up their website. I got to see the names on this.
Keep going. Where?
I don't know. You guys keep talking about the little people. Let's see.
So, Jaden.
Yes.
What's your opinion on people who are underneath the height of 5 or 4'11"?
Under the height of 4'11"?
Under the height of 4'11".
Isn't it? I guess you're right. 4'11", right? Because 4'12" would be 5 foot.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that is what is this. I don't know. I guess I don't really have an opinion. I guess I have too much of a short attention span to pay attention.
So I'm looking at this the roster, and some of these are actually like women wrestlers. So I guess they do women's wrestling as well. But there's Tiffany Payne. I think she's regular size. Chica Chicana, Mini Johnny Depp, 25 Cent, Max Mini God, Too Tall. I can't read that name. El Torito, Mascarita Dorada. I don't think these are actually the Lucha variety ones. Nacho Libres, El Lobito, Mini Durango King, La Parquita, Octagoncito, Mini Kung Fu Panda, Ray Sable, Shorty is a
Rolando,
Bam Bam, Swoggle, Jay Savage, Little Miss Firefly, Big Papa, who is still a mini McGregor, Micro Tiger, Mini Teshimo, Turtle, Mini Bruno Mars, Lucha Smurf and Smurfette, Lil Chola, Lil Hank Dalton, Mini Mayweather, Cat the Midget, Blix, Mini Eminem, Lil Homie, Doomsday, Pequeño Halloween, Incubus, Mini Pacquiao, Demo, Rolando McDonald, Jamaican Joe, Puppet of Impact fame. No, not Impact. Yeah, no, Impact. Little Fabio,
TNA.
Little Kato, and E-Money. Micromania-tour.com/Micromania/athletes.
That definitely wasn't on a short list.
No, it's pretty long for a short list.
Hey, I found it. according to the Little People of America website, the preferred term for dwarfism is little person.
Yes.
Although person of short stature and dwarf are acceptable, the term midget is highly offensive. Although they don't explain why it is, it is.
There's a have you guys
They have a short fuse about that.
Very.
Sorry.
Have you ever heard of the comedian Thom Segura?
Can't say as I have.
I saw Thom Segura years ago before he got famous, and one of the things he said, one of his bits was that he was at a telling jokes, and he used the M word quite religiously in the bit. And afterwards, a little person approached him and said, "Hey, you can't use that word. It's like using the N word." And except for the little person didn't edit himself, and so Thom Segura's like, "Look, man, if these guys come over here and kick your ass, I'm not going to do it." It's a funny bit. I'm sorry. Jeremy says that Thom Segura is a serial killer. All right. Didn't he accuse? Didn't Thom Segura accuse Garth Brooks of being a serial killer? All right, that's another show.
Probably.
Sorry, guys.
When they sign those midget wrestlers, do they sign them to short-term contracts?
Well, the promotion is only going to be around for a short time, so probably.
Those are mini tours.
Ah.
See, and you do it.
So we now know that we're all going to hell.
Yeah.
It's a short trip for us.
Alpha and Sika are leaving money.
I may already be there.
Alpha and Sika are leaving money if they don't appoint a head of the kids' table. Jeremy says Garth Brooks. He claims Garth Brooks is a serial killer to throw the trail off of himself. Maybe. Who knows? Hey, did I show you guys what I got at the Anime Expo? You know, I'm a big Transformer fan, right? Check that out. That's pretty cool, right?
Wow, that's more than meets the eye.
Yeah.
So let me see.
Yeah, I'm trying to change the subject.
We're an NWA podcast that has currently talked about the politically correct term of people with dwarfism. And
yes, apparently midget is not right.
And looking at toys that we bought at some.
First of all, that's a painting. That's not a toy. And then I got this G.I. Joe Transformer crossover. This actually turns into Bumblebee, but I don't know how to do it, so it stays as a Jeep.
Did it come with a G.I. Joe?
It did, actually. It came with... It did. I just don't know where I put it.
Do you know anything?
I also got this one, too, but I haven't opened it up yet.
That one's the one I want. You know, the Baroness, she was kind of hot. I'm just saying.
No, there's no doubt about it. The Baroness was totally hot. She was a baddie.
Wonder if they ever had a midget G.I. Joe.
They did. Called him Roundhouse.
That sounds offensive.
Dave Scooby says he's going to go to hell on a full ride scholarship. Paladin says, "Hey, Jay, I saw your last show where you were talking about the NWA being bought by TK. The real value isn't the promotion running, but in the digital library for TK streaming service." Paladin, the problem is number one, I wasn't advocating that Tony Khan buy the NWA. Someone just suggested it. Number two, the streaming library that TK is accumulating literally every week with Ring of Honor having like 16 matches on one episode of their Ring of Honor TV. The NWA has at most 4 shows a week and a pay-per-view that has maybe 10 matches. I don't think there's a real big value in the NWA, especially like for their library anyways, because it's already been all exposed. Like there's nothing, people would maybe want to see the 10 pounds of gold series, but even then that's not advantageous for Tony Khan to buy.
Only when it was good. That's the saddest thing that they've stop doing.
Well, they don't have anyone to do it creatively.
Well, I understand that, but it's still just sad. Hey, you want an advanced math question?
Speaking of G.I. Joe, where does Sergeant Slaughter rank as most famous wrestlers? Top 20. I mean, look, you got to give him his due. He was an action figure, like, G.I. Joe literally made him in a cartoon and an action figure. What's funny is he didn't voice the cartoon.
He did.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. Slaughter was brought in. He did the skits in between, and he did the voice. He's one of the very few people who actually, well, not that there are real Dukes and Scarlets and Lady J's laying around, but
right.
He was an actual person for his voice.
I thought I remember that not being the case. Now, I'm not saying I'm 100% right.
He has they have a podcast right now with him on there, and I have it. It's one of my YouTube. Occasionally, I pay attention to something out there, and they were talking about his time with G.I. Joe.
You're right. Okay, maybe I was confused because they list him as his real name on the IMDb. But yeah, Robert Remus, Sergeant Slaughter, 8 episodes.
Yep.
Okay.
But anyway, when it came to the time, Slaughter was incredibly huge in the 80s. He actually toured the White House for Ronald Reagan. He used to travel around in a camouflage limo, go around. He had a rock album out, even though it wasn't very good. He had.
Did you just say he had a rock album?
Yeah.
No.
Or at least a rock song, yeah.
Was it like a Toby Keith song or what?
No. It was a 1980s-esque song.
Real quick, Willie Bowen with another joke. When small wrestlers do promo, is it short and sweet? Nice one.
You know why there's no midget wrestlers in the NWA? Tires hate them.
Tires hate them. Shit.
Get in my belly.
Hey, I have a question for you, Jaden, Jay.
All right.
Related to Sergeant Slaughter.
Okay.
Yes, you puke, you maggot, you slime.
Did AWA screw up by not putting the world title on him during the height of his popularity?
Wasn't he a heel in the AWA, or am I
No.
this?
No, he was heel in the NWA. He was heel in the WWF. But I don't other than when he was Super Destroyer Mark II, I don't think he was ever heel in the AWA.
Okay.
Yeah, he turned face in WWE after running into the Iron Sheik. And then he was a face from then on. He left, went to AWA, where he was a face. They created the America's Championship for him, where he carried one of Vern Guyon's old world title belts and always had to keep his hand and arm in front of it so you couldn't read it. And then he left and went back to WWE, who immediately, I think the original gimmick may have worked. They turned him heel with the idea that he didn't like all this, with Russia falling or the Soviet Union falling and all that he didn't like this peace stuff. But then they effed it up by teaming him with the Sheiks against the American things in the Gulf War, right? Which made no sense.
He became an Iraqi sympathizer.
Yeah, which made no sense to the storyline they were trying to tell.
But he wants his country back.
Yeah, and then of course after he loses the world title, they finally give him a world title as an obnoxious heel so that he can lose it to Hogan. And then he wanted his country back after that. Everybody was right with everything they said about him. But, he was basically given a title because Hogan couldn't beat Warrior. So they had to put someone in between. So, but my question is, should the AWA have put the title on him?
When he did the AWA, when he was the America's champion, yes. When it was the Zbyszko time, yes. But I don't think at that point it was going to be. He was definitely not on the peak of his career. He was still with the G.I. Joe phase, and he saw a lot of popularity because of that. But I don't think he was at the point then where it would have made a difference one way or the other to the AWA.
I think instead of Bockwinkel, he should have been given the title.
Bockwinkel had a few runs.
Well, I'm talking about the final one when they did the new belt and Hansen head took off and everything like that.
I mean,
I always felt like
you froze. Is DK froze for everyone or just me?
No, he was frozen.
Okay.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us, DK?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, you've been warmed up.
Okay, good. So, what was the last thing you heard me saying?
Yeah.
I was going to say you were talking about the bipartisan politics, and then you just kind of froze there.
Oh, that was.
You were talking about Bockwinkel when they gave the belt back to him. There was rumors that he was set to beat Hansen for it at one time. But Hansen was bringing it back to, apparently they tried to get him to drop the title before he went back to Japan, but the deal was the title was sold to All Japan bought the title for Hansen for him to defend there in Japan. And apparently Slaughter was one of the ones that he was asked to drop the belt to that he refused.
Well, according to Hansen in later interviews, his claim was Bunny Underwood. His claim was that when the original agreement was made, Hansen wasn't actually looking to win the title. He never
lobbied for it.
Yeah, he never lobbied for it. To the best of his knowledge, Baba never lobbied for it. But they wanted to put the title on. They wanted to take the title off Rick Martel for a short run, and then have Martel win the title again. And so the idea was he was gonna win the title, and then a few months later, Martel was supposed to. He was going to do the favor, and that was the actual phrase he used. I was going to do the favor for Martel in Montreal. That was the plan. But then, in typical times, WWE screwed it up by taking Martel. And so then they were looking for someone to beat him, but Hansen would only do it if it was cleared through Baba. And so supposedly what happened the night he walked out was that they told him he was losing the belt to Bockwinkel that night. They had not said anything prior to it. They just told him that night, you're losing the belt to Bockwinkel. He called Baba. Baba said, he goes, hey, I already got you booked where I'm got you as the champion. Not necessarily title defenses, but, he was supposed to be there and be presented as the AWA champion. And so he told them no. He goes, I'm not losing tonight. He goes, I'll lose after my next tour. And they said, no, you're losing tonight. So he took the belt and walked out. And apparently they figured something might happen because they had already had the new belt made.
Oh.
And so, which, by the way, I always hated the new one.
It was based off an old one.
Yeah. And
getting back to the crux.
We're getting back to that because then we'll sooner or later get back to the NWA.
No, I wanted you asked the question: what did they make a mistake by not putting the title on him? I always thought the crux of the AWA, the whole reason why Hogan never got the title, was because Vern wanted true pro wrestlers to be champions. He wanted guys who were actual workers, right? Not just show, but the actual wrestling. So by that definition, Slaughter was never like a good like hooker in a sense that he'd go out there and protect himself. He wouldn't have the same match that you'd have with like a Vern or a Larry Zbyszko. Like he couldn't get out there and defend himself that way, right? It was more of a show, wasn't it?
No, Slaughter could really wrestle when need to be.
I guess I never saw that side of him.
So watch some of his NWA stuff, or when the WWE let him do it, some of his WWF stuff. He actually was a very good wrestler when he needed to be, but at the Slaughter gimmick, he didn't need to do as much of it as soon as he became that top hot babyface.
Yeah, in Mid-Atlantic, he was a pretty solid guy.
Okay.
And
There was very few people that got over in Mid-Atlantic that weren't good wrestlers. Jimmy Valiant.
Sounds like you're calling somebody out there.
No.
Well, if I don't want to get under a glass table and say anything disparaging, but
Jimmy Valiant.
he wasn't a very good wrestler.
Boogie
But
Woogie,
a lot of the Mid-Atlantic territory, you generally had to be a pretty good wrestler to truly get over, with rare exceptions. I mean, Abby got over huge there, but
so
yeah.
DK, I'm assuming that you thought it was a bad idea not to put the belt on Sergeant Slaughter?
I think he would have been a better choice than Bockwinkel at the time. And I mean, I know you guys like Bockwinkel, and I like him too. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like that time was the wrong time for him. And then, also to twice be given the title, I just didn't think it worked as well.
I hated that they gave it to him, but I didn't mind him as champion. In fact, if it wasn't for that championship, we wouldn't have got that Bockwinkel versus Hennig Classic. Or Bockwinkel putting over Hennig for the championship.
When you think of the AWA, what's your Mount Rushmore?
My Mount Rushmore?
Of the AWA, yes.
Well, I never ever liked Vern Gagne, so he would have been an AWA Mount Rushmore. He wasn't my Mount Rushmore. Bockwinkel is easily on that list. I loved Mad Dog Vachon.
Wow. Okay.
That was 100%. That wasn't a gimmick at all for me. Mad Dog Vachon was pretty much, that's who he was.
And his brother.
Yeah, Butcher Paul. Butcher Paul was the sane one. To figure that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Zbyszko. I just thought Zbyszko was great, whether he was champion or the America's champion or coming out with a ninja and nunchucks. I just always a big Zbyszko fan. And I guess Slaughter.
What, no love for the Crusher? No love for Jerry Blackwell?
They didn't like Blackwell either. I never understood Blackwell. Everybody's talking about a big man doing a dropkick. He had a shitty dropkick. He wasn't Bam Bam Bigelow. Which, by the way, I just saw his Dark Side, and it was really good, even though they left a lot out.
What did you think of?
My problem with
DK.
To me, I saw it in two different. It's always been two different stages for me, and there was like the Stan Hansen and before, and then after, and I just felt like after was never that good. Like, yeah, Curt Hennig was the world champion. I like Curt Hennig, but I didn't feel like they overly used him well or whatever. Jerry Lawler was almost, ridiculous. And, of course, he gave up the title. And by the time he gave up the title and Zbyszko won it, it's like, does the title mean anything anymore?
I love the Lawler era because that's when they were using multiple promotions part of the deal. I mean, I loved when they took the few talents the AWA had with World Class and Continental and Memphis, and even that women's promotion, I forget what it was called, but they all kind of mixed it together. It wasn't Glow, it was POW. That's right. It was POW, Powerful Women of Wrestling, which I always thought, isn't that POW? But I love that era because there was a lot of talent being showcased. Kerry Von Erich, Jeff Jarrett, the Samoan SWAT team, Michael Hayes, Wahoo McDaniels.
But not always in AWA. Like, I saw a lot of it, but...
Yeah, but the television was great.
Wouldn't have gone to an AWA show. But...
You would have gone to an AWA show?
Not... Just an AWA show, like during the Lawler era, not a show that was joint with Tennessee or Texas or whatever. And let me tell you, don't you think they wish they had put the title on Kerry Von Erich that night?
I don't think so. Not that night. I don't think so.
No, well, I'm just talking about after what's his name. Just said, okay, I got another world title. I'm legitimate. Bye.
He left because of money. They didn't pay him. Just like almost all the talent that was part of that.
Well, so yeah, there are other. That's one of those things that there are a ton of stories behind, and they're all a little bit true, and none of them completely.
I think my Mount Rushmore, because I was such a huge Rick Martel fan. He goes on there, Zbyszko goes on there, and then probably Road Warriors.
Even though they were AWA, I never considered them AWA. I considered Adrian Adonis more AWA than the Road Warriors. At least when he was AWA, it was great.
The East Coast West Coast connection.
It was interesting in that the Road Warriors came in, won the titles immediately, wrestled for a year as champions, lost the titles, and left. They were basically only there as the tag team champions.
I remember the old AWA Remco figures, and I remember like Baron von Raschke, and they had the Freebirds and Jimmy Garvin and Baby Doll, and it's like, weren't these guys all NWA Mid-Atlantic and Georgia wrestlers? Like, how'd they end up as AWA figures?
They were AWA guys at the time. In fact, the Holy Pro Wrestling USA allegedly is why the Road Warriors and Jimmy Garvin and even Steve Regal for a short time ended up, and even Baron von Raschke ended up in the Mid-Atlantic area. Apparently, the stories are Crockett tried to steal all their top talents and bring it to that. He even tried to take Slaughter.
Well, that was one of the big ones also where they were talking about money, in that the promoters claim that the shows were arranged by Gagne, and he was supposed to pay the talent. And Gagne told them, no, your promoter's supposed to pay your thing. And so that's one of the reasons it fell apart so quickly. And one of the reasons why Fritz never really contributed any talent to it. Because people forget, that wasn't just a Jim Crockett AWA. Several promoters were originally supposed to be part of it, including Fritz. And most of them was like, well, let's see how this goes first. And it didn't go well, and they said, yeah, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah, Crusher, Maurice, Mad Dog Vachon. There's a lot of guys that I remember popping up with those AWA Remco figures. I remember Larry Zbyszko. I remember you said Steve Regal, and that made me pop because everyone thinks of Steve Regal as the guy in the WWE, WCW, but and no one remembers Mr. Electricity Steve Regal, and Jimmy Garvin, and Jim Brunzell, and Greg Gagne, the High Flyers. So, all right, well,
Kurt Hennig.
Yeah,
there
Kurt Hennig,
was
of course.
Yeah, there was the Freebirds,
the Long Riders,
Dick Worley.
Unfortunately for the Long Riders, once they left Texas, they were never anywhere long. And then Scott got cancer and that cut their time short. But yeah, because they went to Memphis, they won the national championship in Georgia, and were like gone within 2 months, and they were only in Memphis for a couple of months, and they probably stayed the longest in AWA, but they weren't there real long.
I remember the Super Destroyers being around in Georgia way longer than the Long Riders. I think they lost the masks in Georgia, and that's where they became the Long Riders.
Texas. It
was it Texas?
Yep, they lost to Iceman
King Parsons, right?
And that child molester.
Boris Zukov.
Not poor Boris Zukov. Leave that Russian Boris Zukov out of there.
Buck Sumov.
Oh, that's right. Retractions and apologies.
So anyway, yeah, and we've talked about this before offline. I think we've talked about it before on the show. Is that people go, oh, well, what's the difference between the Super Destroyers and the Long Riders? And if you watch, they were different. They wrestled differently in the ring.
Yeah,
they were different characters, and it's one of those things a lot of people don't understand. That Bill Eadie or whatever once said, Beepo Mongo was different than the Masked Superstar, and the Masked Superstar was different than Axe. He goes, they weren't all the same wrestler. You were different each way. God, no. No, absolutely not. So anyway, we've wasted 51 minutes. So what else do we need to talk about?
Okay, so I allowed you to have that time, but now we're going to talk about some fun stuff. So there's a couple of shows happening this week.
You allowed us to have this time?
Yes, absolutely, I did.
Don't you know DK will just talk and not let anybody have any time if they need to?
Look, I'm not trying to pull rank here, but I'm the only one that can mute the microphones on this end. There's several shows that are happening this week. In fact, 2 of them happening tomorrow night. One of them happening Saturday, where there's a lot of NWA talent appearing on these shows. And it begs the question with the fact that in the past, the NWA, I know this might not be a thing going forward, but have worked with Wildcat in Louisiana, working with Joe Cazana in Knoxville. But also, like this Friday night, Kross Fire Wrestling is going to feature a lot of current talents in the NWA. The women's TV champion Kenzie Paige is wrestling in an intergender match. Kylie will be in action. The number 1 contender to the World Junior Heavyweight Championship, Colby Corino, will be wrestling on that card. And Kerry Morton's defending the World Junior Heavyweight Championship at Kross Fire Pro Wrestling. I believe they wrestle out of Kentucky against Rolando Freeman. So, I mean, on the 28th, tomorrow night, that's a loaded card for Kross Fire Wrestling. It's very heavy on NWA talent. Also on Friday night in, I think it's in Tinsley, Illinois, Tinley Park, you've got the World Association of Wrestling North America, which is the North American version of the Knight Family's UK promotion. They're going to have talents both from the past and present NWA. The last NWA North American champion, Mustang Mike, a former NWA National Champion, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony. Both those guys will be in action. The Hawaiian Hitman Koa Lexamana, I don't think I said that right, who we most recently saw wrestle Ricky Morton on NWA Power. He will be in action along with his valet, Kallies Malia. Samantha Starr is going to be wrestling Thom Latimer. In fact, both Samantha Starr and Thom Latimer are wrestling for WAW Championships on Friday night. And, of course, the highlight of the night will be Kamille defending the World Women's Championship against Saraya Knight, all taking place in Tinley Park. So there's 2 shows that are very independent of the NWA, but heavily featuring current NWA talent. And then, of course, the Love Alive charity, which our friend the Pope, who shouted us out on his, or I guess Poyo did, shouted us out on that podcast. They're going to be having their show on Saturday, the Great American Clash. It'll feature talents previously associated with the NWA, like, of course, the Pope and JTG, who is their champion. But it also will feature Jamie Stanley and Eric Jackson of Power, taking place on Saturday. So, like, there's and when you look at these event posters, the thing that you're noticing more and more these days is that the NWA logo is featured next to whichever wrestler will be appearing on these shows. So when KFW is promoting the World Junior Heavyweight Championship with Rolando Freeman challenging Kerry Morton, they're putting an NWA logo next to that wrestler. Same thing with World Association of Wrestling in Tinley Park. It says they're representing talents from the NWA. Is this kind of like a soft introduction to the territory system? Do you think this is something that maybe Billy, he told us early on that the NWA could be whatever he wants it to be. DK, do you think this is a soft opening, a soft introduction to a new territory?
No, not new territory. But I do think it's a better way of getting your name out there in some of these areas.
Okay.
In that, people see what they like when Kamille comes in. Well, where can I see Kamille? Well, watch their YouTube show or whatever.
Right.
So you almost got to think of it as an advertising thing. I don't know if they charge these people for the NWA name or title defense or anything like that. I tend to think not. But what you can get is you can get some free advertisement out of it. Especially if they put out any type of flyer or whatever, you can go as seen on YouTube's NWA POWERRR or something. What they need to be getting out of it. So, no, not territory, but maybe more working. What we really need is for the NWA to be more recognizing of these things that happen outside of Power. That, they need to be bringing up that more often. They kind of barely do occasionally. They need to bring up more often that, Kamille was recently defended her title in
Abu Dhabi,
whatever, wherever, No Name, California, and somewhere Arkansas, and
Intercourse, Pennsylvania,
right? The end of the world, New Jersey.
Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
Oh shit! Bring up a true place. But then again, if you had said Tucumcari, New Mexico, it almost would have sounded as fake. But yeah. So, but Red River
actually is in Intercourse, Pennsylvania, by the way.
I know that.
Yeah.
And so
where they have sex.
Not real. And so yeah, no to a new territory, but yes to a better way of getting the name out.
Jaden, what is your take on it?
One thing that I always, and I know since David Marquez is now listening, that you're probably going to hear me say this. One time he said, like, oh, why do you put WWF Superstar, WWE Superstar in the poster? If that good, they were that important, and they were that big of a draw, you don't need to put that. But that's not why you should put that. There is a thing I learned in business class that a lot of bars or a lot of places will use a Pepsi or Coke banner with the Pepsi or Coke logo and have their prices for their items in there. They just happen to sell Pepsi or Coke. And a lot of bars would have Budweiser or Heineken or something on their banner. What they would use that banner, the banners were basically given to them by those companies. They would print up on there their specials of the week or whatever. What you are doing in that situation is you're not trying to say, oh, look, we got Coke here, or we have this. The reason you're doing that is because it creates an association with a successful brand. And when you have an association with a successful brand, it creates the illusion that you're a successful brand. It is borrowing that goodwill, that je ne sais quoi, that marketing power. borrowing some of that to try to add credibility to your own business. It's the same thing we're using WWE or WCW or ECW or Impact or AEW, or in this case the NWA. You're trying to use any power that has in drawing that people care about and trying to associate it with your company to make your company look bigger. So that's what I believe is going on. I don't believe it's a territorial system. I don't think there's any want or desire to do a territorial system, or they would have already done it. They could have done it when they were working with Marquez and with Wildcat and the Cazanas and stuff like that, and just had them run NWA with different talent at different events and stuff like that, and keep the name out there while they would push the big television tapings and the pay-per-views instead. So the ability to do it is something that can be done. I don't see Billy doing it, and the time I think if he was ever going to do it is well past. Yeah. So now that Jay's gone, let's talk bad about him.
Oh, are we supposed to wait for him to be gone before we do that?
No, but it just gives more. He won't mute us now.
That's true. So let you have that time, boy. Don't you know I know how to pull the plug on your whole house? Anyway, so that brings an interesting point. At what point is if you're booking somebody like Kevin Nash, you may not need to put WWE, former WWE, WCW superstar Kevin Nash. But when you're booking somebody, and I hate to use this example, but it's the first one that's popping in mind, Tyrus. I mean, do you have to put WWE with him? Because who really knows who the hell Tyrus is?
At least he has a look that's somewhat familiar. He has a unique look. A lot of the WWE guys currently don't have that. They all kind of just are the same.
Well, okay, let's look at somebody else in NWA currently. Chris Adonis, Chris Masters. I mean, yeah. Does he need WWE before his name for people to understand kind of who he is and remind people?
I think if a lot of the people that do, they don't promote the NWA Chris Adonis. They do former WWE superstar Chris Masters, or Chris Adonis, formerly known as WWE superstar Chris Masters. But again, it's not necessarily the wrestler needs the WWE. It's the promotions trying to associate themselves with the WWE to make them look bigger.
Yeah, I just didn't know because, like, again, if you said someone like, Kevin Nash, X-Pac, some of those, you wouldn't have to put it on there because people know where they're from.
They still do, though, again, because of association. I've seen a poster for one of those big time type shows like Big Time Wrestling or something like that, where everybody on the poster had something on it. They had Impact, they had Ring of Honor, they had NWA, they had WWE, they had WCW, they had ECW, they had AWA, they had Mama's Wrestling Promotion. They had everything. Somebody had something next to it that was featured on the card. So I even seen one time there was a poster where. Yes, but I've seen it done. I've even seen one time posters. Seen a poster where somebody said a scene on Jerry Springer.
Oh, geez.
It was a wrestler who was on Jerry Springer, and they put that on there.
That's amazing. One of the things that you guys were talking about right before I left for a minute was DK said that putting your show out there, the territory system isn't necessarily a big get for the NWA as much as just recognizing what's happening outside of the NWA. And I kind of agree with that, especially when it comes to our world television champion and Thom Latimer, specifically for the reason that, Thom Latimer has, depending on if you count outside the NWA, Thom has 7 victories as our TV champion. He defeated Rhett Titus on an episode of Power. He just defeated Garrison Creed but this was at an MAW event back in February. Now, MAW is not associated with the NWA. Garrison Creed has made a few appearances within the NWA, but we'll move forward. He had a time limit draw with EC3 in Highland Park, but a draw goes to the champion. He defeated Fodder again in Highland Park. He defeated Jay Bradley at the HB Cares for Cooper, which hasn't been televised yet. He defeated Mario Pardua in Highland Park, and he defeated Noah Kakoa in Boca Raton, Florida, which also hasn't aired yet. Could this murky up the title picture at this 75th anniversary show? Do you think this could become a triple threat bull rope match?
No.
God, I hope not.
No, I think with going through a bull rope match where the idea of being tied together, and the big bull rope in the middle, I don't think you can do that in a three.
It needs a cowbell. This match needs more cowbell.
Yeah, effectively.
I have a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
You gotta work on your walking too. Your impressions aren't where it's at, brother.
I never actually attempted to walk in that way before.
You never tried Christopher Walken. See, mine aren't good either.
Yeah, walk this way. Funny.
Do you think that?
I still don't think Jay's gotten it.
Do you think that there is an opportunity that maybe the title might be defended twice at Crockett Cup Night 2?
Which title?
The 10 pounds of gold.
Crockett Cup Night 2?
Did I say Crockett Cup? No, 75th anniversary show. Sorry, 75. Excuse me.
So you're saying EC3 wins it or Tyrus retains it, and then it's defended the next night?
No. Okay, so the match happens night 2. The world title match between EC3 and
that's the main event.
That's the main event. But what if, because that as we saw with Jack Stain, he had that championship cash in. He used on Crimson, right? There's a few people on the roster that have an opportunity to do the cash in, and I'd have to go back and look to see which wrestlers those are. But we do know that Thom Latimer has 7 successful victories. If they don't recognize the one in MAW, he'll probably be defending the TV title at least night 1 or night 2, which would bring him to 7. If they recognize those 7 being the Boca Raton show and the HB Cares for Cooper event, then he would have 7. Theoretically, he could cash in night 2 and challenge the winner of the match, of the bull rope match.
Could. I don't know that they will. A lot will depend on what they do with the tag team titles. If they double switch them, it hurts double switching the world championship.
Yeah.
So, and I would prefer to see it. I hate hot short title reigns, but I would prefer to see a double switch in that, if that were going to be the case. I mean, is the winner from night 1 definitely facing Murdoch's in night 2?
Yes, that one we know for a fact. That's in fact, I have it right here. Let me pull it up. So we know for a fact on. Sorry, that went down. Should have went up. We know that on night 1, it's going to be Blunt Force Trauma versus La Rebellion for the World Tag Team titles, and then on night 2, the winner of that match faces the Murdochs.
Great, Mark.
I could see that double title change, and I would be okay with it. Although it's not my norm of what I like to see.
Right.
I'd be okay with it. I would rather see La Rebellion, who've lost a lot recently. I'd rather see them get their revenge on on blunt force trauma and get the victory, and then lose to Murdoch's, get beat up or something, at the end of the night or at the end of the match.
I wouldn't hate blunt force trauma winning and then beating Murdoch's too, because that will avenge a loss.
Yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of Doom 2.0.
I don't mind them.
I
always liked Rodney Mack.
I don't.
Back when he was Red Dog.
I don't dislike them, but and maybe it's just, again, that way that they've been booked, and we see some of it in the show in Power, but it was just, I don't know. I would rather, I want Murdoch's to be the champions at the end of the 75th. I'm not saying that will happen. I'm just saying that's what I want.
If they're changing the world title, it's best, in my opinion, to hold off changing the tag, especially if they're going to do it twice.
Yeah, that's the thing. Of course, I don't know if they're changing the world title or not. I mean, just because.
That's where I said the if.
Yeah, I was going to say, just, no matter what the rumors or no matter what the stipulation or whatever, I can see Tyrus ending the night still as champion.
I wouldn't be surprised if he retains the title. They're also doing TV in Nashville the following 2 days. I would be disappointed if they don't take the belt off of Tyrus, but nothing is going to surprise me in terms of the booking of the show. I wouldn't be shocked if every title changes hands. I wouldn't be shocked if none of the titles change hands. I mean, if we just look at the card as it is dealt right now, I mean, the title matches that I can pull up here, I could very much see Natalia Markova becoming the next women's world champion. I could very much see Blunt Force Trauma winning on night 1 and losing to Murdoch's on night 2. I could very easily see Colby Corino winning the title from Kerry Morton. I could very easily see EC3 winning the title from Tyrus. With all that being said, I could also see none of those guys winning the titles and no title changing hands whatsoever. But I don't think that's what's best for business. And I think at least the 75th, this is their WrestleMania. Don't make no mistake about it. This is their big moment to shine. They're going to do something big. Something big is going to happen, whether it be Kamille is no longer the women's champion after that pay-per-view, or Tyrus loses the title, or Lauder Belly. The titles are going to change because this is their big night. But I just don't know who is going to leave as champion.
Also, to DK's point, if we can't get behind a wrestler that's booked badly by the NWA, then other than Kamille, there's nobody to get behind.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
actually very disappointed in the lack of build that we've had for Markova, Kamille. I guess it's 3, but it's kind of 2 in the grand scheme of things.
What did you expect to see? Because remember, we also have another 4 weeks of television before the pay-per-view.
Look, I'm not saying they won't do something, and I'm certainly not saying they will do anything. But, they've announced the match without any understanding of
proper booking.
Yeah, I'm reading everybody who.
Yeah, please stop putting comments, and he gets distracted easily. It's shiny for him.
Well, it's just, everybody's so convinced Tyrus is losing the belt. Everybody was convinced Tyrus was losing the belt at 312. So
everybody was convinced Damian Wayne was going to win at the dog event,
including Damian Wayne. Everybody said when Tyrus first won the title, he's just going to be a transitional champion. They're not going to keep it on him long. And I told all of you then you were idiots. And,
your whole family is idiots. It's upbringing.
Yeah, sorry. Anyone who thought that was going to be a short reign, and everyone's going to lie now because everybody's going to go, well, I knew it was going to be a while. I knew they wouldn't take the title off him right away. Yeah.
No, I definitely am one of those people that thought that Trevor Murdoch would win the title back. I didn't think it was going to be a long-term run. And, of course, I mean, think about it this way. When they put the belt on him at hard times, they had a good progression to have him win that title. Like, whether you like Tyrus or not, the story that they were telling with Tyrus and Murdoch, and there was this mutual admiration for each other, and Trevor violated that admiration because he went low when Tyrus went high, and now Tyrus is going to make the same mistake twice. There was a good storytelling for that. Do I like Tyrus as a wrestler? No, but I could at least appreciate the storytelling that they were telling. But then once he wins the title, it absolutely just went to shit because they had no plan for him. They didn't have good opponents for him. Matt Cardona got a shot, and it was a joke. Rolando got a shot. It was a joke. He went to Mexico, and he fought against a guy who hurt himself in the match. And I'm not trying to put that on Daga, but even if Daga was 100% healthy, putting Daga into a match with Tyrus, a guy who is essentially a junior heavyweight, and the match with a guy who's a super heavyweight, I'm sorry, it's just not going to work. It wouldn't have been a good match no matter what. It had a recipe for disaster. There were guys on that AAA roster who would have made a lot of sense. Psycho Clown had a great match with Trevor Murdoch, good match with Trevor Murdoch. He should have been in that position. He should have been wrestling against Tyrus. At least then you have a credible opponent for Tyrus. And even at the end of the day, if Tyrus still takes the victory and Psycho Clown does the JOB, at least you have a guy who's like, hey, man, I mean, he stepped in the ring. He looked good. It was a almost equal comparison. Not quite. But Psycho Clown's a heavyweight. Daga's a junior heavyweight. It just didn't make sense. Didn't look it on paper. Then you put him in the ring with Chris Adonis, and he barely survived that match. And then you put him in the Crockett Cup, and he looked like shit in Crockett Cup. Did I want Tyrus as world champion? No. Did I think it was going to be a short-term run? Yes. Am I shocked that it's not? I'm disappointed.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that. And so, and look, he may lose the title and he may retire. That is definitely an out that would work, for them. It's definitely something they could do at 50 years old. But I am in no way saying it's going to happen without a doubt, because I don't know. I don't know why they have the idea. And getting back to what we were talking about, Markova and Kamille, but my problem with that one is that the match was announced almost right away when they started announcing matches. And yes, they could still do something storyline wise, but they haven't explained to us why we're having that match at all. They had the match last time, and Markova lost clean.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, what reason have you given us that there's going to be that there's going to be a rematch?
Yeah,
and announcing it and then giving us the reason 5 weeks later is foolish.
Well, I agree with you in that I feel like if they weren't going to pull the trigger at 312, this isn't the time to do it. I feel like you should have either gone with an outside hire for this situation or not have Kamille defend the title at all. Because I think just giving the match to Markova, she didn't earn it. Like in most title matches, if the champion doesn't win, it's not guaranteed a rematch. That the challenger then has to go and fight their way back through. Markova hasn't fought through anything. If anything, Kenzie Paige looks more prompt to be the challenge for the Women's World Championship than Markova. So I agree with you. They've done nothing to build it up. I'm not saying that there isn't time for that, but they've done nothing to build it up.
There's a reason why back in the day, a lot of the early matches, first-time matches, either end it in time limit draws or controversially, because then people want to see the rematch. But if when the person just goes over clean, then it's like, well, okay, now I need a reason to see it.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where we are on some of these things. I will say one thing that Tyrus did well in their thing at 6:30 my time, 7:30 Eastern. Who knows what time it was Pacific? 4:30, I guess. He gave the history of him and EC3.
Yeah.
How they started out in Florida Championship Wrestling. How they did things in Next. How Tyrus became the Funkadactyl and took off on the main roster. And EC3 went and became the man in another promotion. And, and then, he got, when Tyrus went to that promotion, at first they were friends and then they fell apart. And then, then the reason he was putting these stipulations in was because, EC3 kept making him have to run through hoops in order to get a match with him and all that stuff. He gave us in this one thing more reason for why we should care about these two guys wrestling than
Billy Corgan has ever.
Yeah, I go then probably any title match since the first one between Murdoch and Tyrus. There we go. So, and I don't, the problem is Murdoch has to be in with the right person. Tyrus has to be in with the right person to look good. And so I'm just not sure. EC3's had some very bad matches.
5 years ago today, to this very day, I saw EC3 live for the very first time at the Riverside Municipal Auditorium when he was with NXT. And there's a reason why I'm telling you that, and I'm going to look it up right now. He shared the ring with Tomas Ciampa. Am I saying that right?
Tommaso Ciampa.
Tommaso Ciampa and Velveteen Dream and let's see, it was Aleister Black and EC3 versus Velveteen Dream and Tommaso Ciampa. And it was the first NXT live event that I ever saw. It's the only NXT live event I ever saw. And I kept thinking, because I only heard good things about EC3 before. And I was like, wow, this dude is pretty good. And that was literally 5 years ago today. And in that time, he's gone on to go to Impact. Or was he in Impact first? Am I getting
He was Impact first.
Okay.
He was Impact first.
Okay. Well, trick question. He was with WWE first in Florida in the early NXT, whatever it was, before it was just the wrestling show.
Yeah.
Then he went to Impact. That's where he developed the name. And then he went to NXT as we think of it today.
Was he Michael Hutter when he was in NXT the first time around?
Might have been. I don't remember. Honestly.
Or was it Derek Bateman? Okay, he was a Florida Championship Wrestling Tag Team Champion as Derek Bateman with Johnny Curtis. But Ethan Carter to the third when he got back to got to TNA.
Right.
Who did Johnny Curtis end up being?
Johnny Curtis ended up being Dirty Dango. It's kind of surprised he hasn't come back to the NWA.
Oh, I'm so glad he hasn't come back to the NWA. Don't.
You didn't like
him? Did he start work?
What did you say, Jaden? I missed it.
Didn't he end up somewhere recently, like Impact or MLW?
I think he's back in Impact. Hey, I'm looking. I can look right now, right? I think Impact Wrestling. That's where he signed.
No, that's like being on the Witness Protection Program. So.
Oh, you're breaking poor Tommy Dreamer's heart, man.
So does cholesterol.
What's that?
So did cholesterol.
Oh, he's gonna go home and sleep with Beulah McGillicuddy tonight. What are we gonna do?
Playing about the NWA.
Talk
Girls
about
and
the
Clouds.
NWA, Daddy.
Mommy? I got lost. What are we talking about?
I don't know. You wait. No, I'm not going to read that comment, Paladin. I don't know what they did to Tila Tequila, and I don't care to know. Tila Tequila is a name I haven't heard since MySpace, so that's a flashback. Jaden, were you a Tila Tequila fan?
I remember of her, but I don't really remember her. Like, the name sounds familiar, but so she must not really made much of an impact on me. I liked Viper back in the MySpace days.
Viper?
Yeah, she was a really cool person. She was also a very attractive blonde.
DKM, do you remember Tila Tequila?
You know, that's one of those things where the name sounds incredibly familiar. I mean, she wasn't like, she was like some kind of, wasn't she one of those people that was kind of famous for being famous?
Yes.
For being pretty, more like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I remember, she was Asian, right?
Yes.
Maybe? Or Spanish?
I'm pulling up her photo now, so just give me a second. Just give me a second. There.
You failed the city.
Singapore. She's from Singapore.
That's Tila Tequila.
Hold on.
The name Tequila, why isn't she Mexican?
I don't think her last name was Tequila because she was Hispanic. I think her last name was Tequila because she liked to do a little drinky.
Yeah, no, she's like I said, Asian. She was born in Singapore and became popular on MySpace.
That's what I said.
And I know I'm reading off Wikipedia right now.
The Alliance guys were big on MySpace.
We had a decent following
on MySpace.
Yeah.
Tequila was
offered
to star in her own reality television television series with her bisexuality theme as a bisexuality themed dating show, A Shot at Love with Tia. Now I can't say
Easy
it.
for you to say.
Not at all.
Stop drinking, they maybe be able to say it.
She was raised in Houston, Texas, which is probably why the tequila comes into effect.
Yeah, that actually explains a lot.
And
not as much as El Paso.
After expressing support of Adolf Hitler and making anti-Semitic and white nationalist comments for being Asian, she was expelled from Celebrity Big Brother. They're Vietnamese by culture.
I guess she wasn't real popular with the ICP fan base at the Gathering of the Juggalos, as Jeremy said that she got pelted by Fago at the Gathering of the Juggalos, and our pal Paladin said that she was hired to perform at the Gathering, and the fans hated her rapping so much they chased her off stage and locked her in the RV, pounding on the windows. So hopefully she's not in St. Louis. I don't think she has anything to do with wrestling at this point or the ICP. So I think we can not worry about that. One thing I want to say is, hey, James H. Jackson says MySpace is still around. We should all make accounts. Who's in? Who wants to make a MySpace account? Jane,
none of you would be in my top 8 places.
I might still have one. I don't even know whatever happened to mine.
Yeah, I probably still do have one. I didn't delete it.
You got to delete it and start over fresh, buddy. All right, so let's we spent a lot of time talking about everything else. We do talk about NWA Power. That's part of the show, but I promise not to keep it too long. We're going to go short and sweet tonight and try to
please,
get
Dave Marquette, please show up. Please.
Hey, Bill, it's Bill Burns out there. Come on. Let's go.
If Bill
Labrador Jones, I don't care.
You know, I actually reached out to a couple of different people trying to get them to come on tonight, and I couldn't get anyone to confirmed. So that's why we are talking about Power. But this was look, it wasn't a bad episode if you were watching it. The wrestling was good. Some of the storylines, some of the booking was a little bit off as far as I'm concerned, but for the most part, it was a good show. It started off with Jack Stane and Carnage kicking off the this week's Power. A lot of manager involvement with Aaron Stevens, which is weird because, Chris Silvio's out there with Jack Stane. He is the Savage's manager. He's out there, and he really didn't get involved. It was all Stevens kind of doing the underhanded tactics. In the ring, the match went back and forth. And, we got a pretty sweet power slam when Jax went to pop the trunk on Carnage. Carnage picked him up and got him in a sweet power slam. You don't really see Jack Stane thrown across the ring like that. Not very often. But then the action would spill outside the ring. Stevens ends up hitting Jack Stane with that loaded glove. Jax, as we've seen in the past, has kind of a glass jaw, to be honest. He got knocked out by He got knocked out by Slice Boogie a few years ago on the outside of the ring, if memory serves me.
The ring apron, yes.
What's that?
The ring apron.
It was the ring apron?
There was one time he was pulled from the ring, and so he hit the ring apron.
And he was out.
And he was out like for 15 minutes. And then I swear somebody at the other wrestling promotions actually watched, because for the next 4 weeks, people were getting pulled off the thing and hit their head on the ring apron and, would kind of do that drunk person stumble. And then after about a minute, be fine.
Well, it is the hardest part of the ring. That's what Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross and Michael Cole have always told me. So, but anyways, so the referee counts out Jack Stane. Carnage gets the victory here. The post-match stare down between Jax and Tim Storm could be leading to something. As of right now, Jack Stane isn't booked for either night of the 75th anniversary show. We know that Carnage will be in a tag team world title match on night one. I kind of feel like, if I'm going to throw my own notes on this, I felt like they made a mistake. I think Carnage should have went over cleanly without Aaron Stevens using that loaded glove, because basically, as of this point right now, Jack Stane doesn't have a match for 75. And if they're going to build towards Tim Storm versus Jack Stane, that's fine. I'm okay with that. In fact, I would like to see it. But Carnage has got a big world title opportunity, world tag team match. And I feel like, yes, he got the victory, but he didn't get the victory in a strong way. You know what I'm saying, DKM? Like, he won the match, kudos, but it was another Aaron Stevens involved victory. And if you're going to go into that match at 75, when theoretically Vampiro, who doesn't mind getting involved in the ring, will probably be there, and Aaron Stevens, who doesn't mind getting involved in the match, will be there, I feel like that's going to be they're going to cancel each other out. Could have given Carnage a victory here. He would have looked strong. DK, your thoughts?
It was bizarre because, you're mentioning Chris Silvio's out there.
Yeah, it didn't do nothing.
And yeah, I was going to say, he's not unknown to get involved in matches. And it was just like, he didn't do anything. He didn't get in Steven's face. There was no,
Hell, he didn't even try to take liberty with Carnage when the referee was counting out Jax,
Right. It was just, again, I don't know who put that match together, but it didn't make a lot of sense. So I'm sorry to whoever put it together, but if you're going to have the manager out there, then you shouldn't have two managers with one interfering and the other one not.
Especially when they're both heels.
Yeah, especially when they're both heels. Because we know Billy loves heel versus heel. So I don't know what kind of fetish that is for him, but he likes it.
Well, maybe he likes to wear heels.
The ironic thing about this is just a few weeks ago, and you could still find the articles online all over the place. Trevor Murdoch did an interview and he said that, the NWA is going to have more clearly defined heroes and villains on their programming. And it's like, no, they're not. No, they're not. Since when? That's been a hallmark of this Lightning One era is that, there is no black versus white. It's just all a varying degree of gray. There's not well-defined heroes. Show me the guy who hasn't cheated in his match. Show me a guy who hasn't taken a shortcut. I don't think there's a single person on the roster.
Well, not only that, but someone can be a well-defined heel for 4 weeks, and then suddenly be a face
for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, just
inconsistency.
All of a sudden he's wrestling another heel, and so the other heel acts more heelish than him, and so now he's a face.
Yeah.
And Otison's one of the people we've kind of seen that with. We kind of saw that with Kratos too. It's just like, okay.
There's no consistency in the booking, and that's problematic. Next,
know where you don't see that? Daredevil Dave Dahl. He's unlikable and he'll never change.
That is true.
It's funny. Next up, we've got Murdoch's taking on Rush Jones, and I believe it was pronounced Shafe. And now this is a tag team. I believe they're from the Independents in the Chicago area. New to the NWA. It's the first time we are seeing them. And these dudes are bad dudes. Like, I was kind of surprised that this is the matchup you give to Murdoch's leading up to the 75th. At this point, Murdoch's has already punched their ticket. This should be smooth sailing from here on out. But they put him in the ring with two ruffians, some rapscallions, if you will, two guys that were bad dudes. And this quickly became like a hoss fight, maybe even, as they said on the broadcast, like a barroom brawl. It was, again, another back and forth match where I think at this point, I want to see Murdoch just run people over. This is it's an interesting dichotomy. If this is a tag team that has some long-term staying power with the NWA, then great, give them these opportunities, help build them up right now. A loss to Murdoch's doesn't hurt them. If you lose to the Crockett Cup champions, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, especially if you have a match where you look strong up against them. But this match, again, I felt like it was pretty evenly booked, and they looked really credible against the Crockett Cup champions. Murdoch's get that victory when they go high-low. I felt like at any moment Murdoch could change the switch. I feel like he could have gotten a little bit more aggressive in the ring, but the match itself was good. I just think if I was booking this show, DKM, I think I would have had an easier matchup for Murdoch's.
One of the things that I've noticed in the booking is that when they use local talent who normally is part of some promotion in the area, and we saw this when we were in New Orleans, is that they give the local talent a lot. And it's like, okay, I sort of understand you don't want to just go in and destroy them.
Yeah.
But the problem is nobody knows who this local talent is. And so if you're going to have the local talent be competitive with someone, then that's who should have been in the ring with the U.S. Tag Team Champions. Knox and Murdoch, and we talked about this with Kamille. Before Kamille won the title, we said that her TV appearances should be short and destructive.
Yes.
And right now with Murdoch's, that's what we need. Short and destructive. Now, none of the matches were that long on the show, don't get me wrong. But, yeah, I mean, this should have been just a 2-minute mauling.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to do that with Jones and Shafe or Shaft or let's call the whole thing off, then you put those two in the ring with somebody different, and you give Knox and Murdoch a couple guys, give them Rolando and anybody.
Yeah.
Rolando. And, you just dominate them and you're done. So, yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I don't necessarily have a problem that there was a good match on the show or an even match with some local.
Yes, but You're right.
I mean, the match was. I mean, as I so often say, in isolation, the match was good.
Yeah.
I just don't know that it was the right match to have. And these are the things where you don't have to call in this time, Dave. But these are the things where it's like, are you sure they got a plan? Dave says there was a plan going into every taping, but that's been a long time since Dave was part of the NWA. Now I'm just not so sure.
Jaden,
may I speak on this?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, just because they have a
Maybe
plan
not.
doesn't mean doesn't mean it in any way matches up to the plan they had last week or whatever, or last time they did tapings.
First of all, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Mike Tyson said that.
Yeah. But there's a difference between, and wrestlers nowadays need to learn this. There's a difference between putting on a good match on television and put on a match to get you over as a star. This might have been a good match, but it didn't get Murdoch over as stars. It didn't make them seem like something that can draw money. Often, good matches on television between somebody you've never heard of and a star, all that does is lower the quality of what the star looks like. Because here's somebody with no build-up, no name, that you have no plans for in the future, going one-on-one competitive with the guy that's supposed to be one of your top people. It gets them under, not over. So people and promoters and bookers and producers and rock stars with a lot of money need to realize there's a really big difference in trying to get somebody over as a star on television and then just putting on random shit just because you can.
Yeah, this goes back to something Lance Storm once said when he was talking to. He said it many times, but I remember specifically one time when he was talking to Jim Cornette. He was talking about how in ECW, they didn't care. Everybody was going to go out and have the best match that they could possibly have. When in wrestling, that's not the way it was actually set up. That's not the way the rules were supposed to be. And he goes, we broke all the rules, and then we found out why there were rules. And there's a famous story that Ole Anderson tells of working with Tony Atlas, where he brings Tony Atlas in, it's this big, strong guy, and takes all this time building up. Tony's going to bench press 500 pounds. And, first the weights are, there by the door, and later they move them up by the ring and everything like that. And, the first time Tony's just looking at it, and, so finally after, 3 or 4 weeks of build, Tony Atlas goes and he bench presses 500 pounds. And then they put him in a match. And Tony goes out and has a really good match with this guy. And Ole Anderson is pissed off because he goes, I spent 5 weeks building you up as this rough and tough, strong guy. And you go out and have a match where you're competitive with an undercard dude. He goes, you were supposed to wreck him. This back when wrestlers had more control over what went on in the ring.
Yeah.
He goes, and Ole Anderson goes, what can I do with you now? So Ole Anderson sent him to another promotion. Called one of the other promotions. Say, you're going to have to take him for a while because I can't use him now.
You're no good to me now.
Yeah. And so these are the things. There's a reason all those old things worked for so long, and why people who go, you just don't like new wrestling, so because it's stupid. I don't mind all the necessarily some of the in-ring stuff, but the storytelling in the ring is what's important. And yeah, a team like Murdoch should be running over people, not having competitive matches with them. What else happened?
I'm glad you asked. Next up, we have.
I was hoping you forgot.
This is actually. So, DK said it just a few minutes ago. In a vacuum, this was a good match. that's kind of how I felt about the show. There's a lot of good things in a vacuum, but then other things seem to be kind of dumb. And I never like to poo-poo on a former guest, a friend of the show, because I really do like Mims. I think Mims has a lot of potential that still has been unrealized by the NWA. But in a promo like this, I think it does more to hurt you than it does to help you. The interview starts off with May Valentine asking Mims, like, did he see what happened earlier with the matchup between Carnage and Jax Dane? And Mims goes on this tangent calling the Savages evil, calling Chris Silvio evil. And as we just watched a match like 5 minutes ago, there was no evil going on. There was nothing evil about this match. It was a typical wrestling match. There's nothing evil, nothing bad happened. And so, like, it just kind of made me think, like, what is he talking about? And if this was foreshadowing for his match, like, someone else should have been saying this about Chris Silvio, not Mims, because nothing leading up to this match made Chris Silvio evil. And in all honesty, nothing in the match following made Chris Silvio evil. It was a dumb promo. Mims starts talking about how he believes in himself, and he never quits. He's big, strong Mims because he's got a big, strong heart. This is all fine. This is all good, but ultimately, this promo it makes Mims seem like a little bit of a buffoon. And I like Mims, but a promo like this, it didn't even reflect what happened in the ring. And Jaden, I know that you've helped out with producing pro wrestling. Does this feel like out of place to you, or is this just, am I looking too much into it?
They either didn't give Mims any true direction on what he needs to say, or they gave him what they want to happen in the future, but actually hasn't happened yet. That happens sometimes with television where things are recorded out of sync, or miscommunications happen where stuff that was supposed to happen got changed and it didn't get to the other person in the television field, like the other talent that would happen. So, and it also just could have been said, like, hey, here's a promo, talk about Silvio. And that's all they said, without giving him any, again, direction whatsoever on how to do it. So it may not be Mims' fault. It just might be poor directing, poor communication, or just poor planning. But either way, it doesn't sound like it was something that was done right for television. I keep saying this, and I'm sure Mr. Marquez and anybody else in television will agree. Television time is very valuable, even if it's YouTube time. You only have so much time to grab attention. If the show's an hour, half hour, whatever, people want to watch and get as much out of that as possible while you have their attention. If this didn't make any money, then this didn't make any sense. So if they don't have direction, if he's not there to further the storylines, further the personal grudges, or to somehow foreshadow something coming intelligently, then it shouldn't have never happened. It was just a waste. It was just a promo put in for promo's sake.
Yeah. And look, and James says he has a heart of a lion. Like, look, I feel like, again, Mims has this ton of potential. I think there's a lot of upside, even after a promo like that. Like, I don't think it ruins him as a character or anything. I just feel like let's make Mims great again. Let's go back to the roots. Let's put him in a position where he can be successful. If it wasn't under the mentorship of the Pope, it sure as hell isn't going to be under the mentorship of Dax Draper. Maybe let's start over. Let's rebuild him. Let's make him stronger, faster, better. I don't know. I didn't really dig this part.
Yes, the $6 million Mims. Let's go with that.
There it is. I'm all right with that. So then we get the match. Blake Troop. This match, again, in a vacuum, is a pretty good match, and it kind of tells the story of wrestling hurt. In fact, where Mims is supposed to be the babyface, typical babyface behavior, you don't go after your opponent's injury. But he was. He was putting a bear hug on Blake Troop, who's got injured ribs. And although that is a competitive, the sign of a true competitor being a tactician in the ring, that's not typical babyface behavior. So when he was going after the ribs, I kind of felt like, wow, that's a little bold, Mims. So they went back and forth. But the story was like Mims was going after the ribs of Blake Troop, and then Blake was going after the knee of Mims, where he locked on his figure four leg lock, which was pretty cool. It looked more like a submission hold than a traditional figure four leg lock. Mims was able to break the hold once, but he wasn't able to break the hold twice. He held on to it a little bit longer after the bell rang. And they kind of blew it out of proportion, like, oh, they have to rush him to the hospital. I don't know. I just felt like that was kind of weird. We don't know of a pre-existing injury from him, so why would this leg lock be so detrimental to him? DK, you watched the match. What did you think?
Well, I mean, you nailed it. In a vacuum, it was actually an enjoyable match as far as I was concerned. Did it make sense with the world around us? Was the injury angle a little bit overdone? Yeah, especially since Mims has already been had a couple of injury angles.
Yeah.
And so
how many times can you cry wolf?
Yeah, I mean, just, unless he's really injured, then this becomes, well, why do you need to keep doing it? Tyrus hurt his arm or shoulder that one time, and I'm thinking something else happened. I have this memory of him being injured another time. And so it's just one of those, I don't get it. I mean, the
law of diminishing returns.
Yes.
You do the same thing over and over and over again, it becomes less and less and less effective.
And especially since they kept giving us updates throughout the show. It's like they're trying to make it very dramatic, but I don't feel it came across as very dramatic.
And did it in any way get Goof Troop over?
I don't feel like it got Blake over any more than he already was. I felt like all it did was remind you that, hey, this dude is a mixed martial artist. I don't feel like it made him any better or any worse. DK, did you think it made him any better or any worse?
No, not particularly. Now I have a question for you guys, because Troop isn't smooth in the ring.
No, still very green.
And part of it you can latch on to the coming from MMA. MMA is not a smooth thing, and so part of it can be part of a gimmick. Well, he's not smooth because he's an MMA fighter. But at what point and how smooth does he have to get? He can't stay where he's currently at.
Well, steel sharpens steel. He needs to get out there and get more practice. Amateur wrestlers who come from high-level amateur wrestling, with the exception of Kurt Angle, also really had this problem where they were stiff. And they were used to moving people around, not guiding them around. They were physically moving them around. And that's why a lot of amateur wrestlers that got into professional wrestling didn't have the best professional wrestling careers. Again, there are exceptions, the Briscoes and later Brock Lesnar. But again, if you watch early Brock, he was like watching, it was like wrestling against a brick wall. Everything he did was like a center block.
Where would you put the Steiners in there?
The Steiners, they were real collegiate amateur wrestlers, but they were stiff as bricks too. I guess everything they did was stiff, but they weren't stiff looking in the ring. They just were stiff damaging in the ring. But still, I think Jim Cornette said it best. When it came to the Steiners, it didn't matter if you didn't want to go where they were going. They were putting you there. But...
And they had the size to do it.
Yeah. Say what you will about Rick Steiner and his beliefs about gender. That man was stronger than an ox.
he had gorilla strength, and Scott was actually, even though he was bigger, a lot of people say that Rick was actually the stronger of the two.
I can
Yeah, but they were just unnaturally powerful, and as wrestling can do that for you too.
Real quick, because you brought it up, when I was a kid, and this was going back to the early '90s when they debuted, because I remember Rick as part of the Varsity Club and the whole thing with Woman and all that. When Scott debuted, I always thought Rick was the bigger of the two. Then they disappeared for a while and came back, and Scott was much, much bigger. Am I remembering that correctly, or am I crazy in that?
Early '90s WCW Steiners were jacked as hell, but Rick was definitely the bigger of the two. Coming back from the WWF, I can definitely say Big Pump had the hookup. Holla if you hear me.
I hear you all right. I hear you.
And of course, by the time he grew the goatee, he was very unnaturally huge.
He was gassed to the gills. Just say it. It's all right. I don't think it's called defamation if it's true. Okay, so that brings us to the next promo. Now this wasn't bad. This was horseshit. This was terrible. And again, who do you blame here? Do you blame the talent for not being prepared? Do you blame the producers for putting the talent in a position that they can't succeed? I don't know. But Eric Jackson is cutting a promo, and it's the worst effing promo I've ever heard in the NWA. So May says, hey, you have a big tag team match next week where you and a special partner take on Fodder and a special partner. And it didn't really specify who their partners were. And
why are they getting special partners?
Right.
What benefit, what money-making ability does that have that anybody's dying to see this feud continue, let alone start, with special partners to add to it?
Yeah. So then let me just finish. So
yes, James X. Jackson, I blame you. It's 100% your fault.
So then Fodder comes in and maybe he's trying to save the promo. Anyway, Eric Jackson starts saying, yeah, I've done some research on my partner, Robert Anthony. He's trained. So, and before you can even finish the words, you've got Fodder coming in with the psycho girl, Angelina Valentine. And it was just
Love. Angelina Love.
Sorry, Angelina Love, excuse me. It was kind of pointless, kind of dumb. And it sounds like he's trying to be like Heath Ledger Joker, which, I mean, that's fine. I don't think I've really heard Fodder on the mic very much before. So this is probably the most I've heard him on the mic. In fact, I think they did this all wrong. I think Eric Jackson should have given any mic time, and it should have been Fodder talking about this, because you could have at least had Fodder trying to be the Joker with Angelina, and they could have done something a little bit more interesting than what we got. This was a whole waste of time. DK, please tell me you agree.
Well, the first thing I'll tell you is, unfortunately, unlike as a habit of mine, I did not fast forward through this, because it was kind of like a car wreck, and you just couldn't turn away from it. And you kept thinking there's got to be more to it than what I'm seeing right here.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason behind this. And, there wasn't. And it was bad.
It was awful.
And who do you blame for this? You blame the people that put it on. I mean, that's the way this works. Somebody recorded this, and I realized they kind of do live to tape, but they shouldn't in some of these segments.
Was this in the back? Was this in front of an audience?
No, it was in the back. It was with May Valentine in the back.
Yeah.
Then it didn't. It could have been reshot.
It should have been reshot. But
now,
for some reason, apparently Billy doesn't like to reshoot them. He wants them to like live or die by it.
Which I mean, look, I could get that if you're a live company, but like you're not. But then also on the flip side too, not that I'm trying to give Billy any slack here, but like they had one taping or two tapings in one day. So they needed to get stuff done as quickly as possible. But they could have done reshoots. There's green screens for crying out loud. There's ways to make this work. This definitely wasn't one of them.
Or when it's bad, just cut it.
Yeah. Give me an Austin Idol commercial. Go get one of those out of the can.
Because this did nothing to advance my caring about either one of these two.
And I don't even know who Fodder's tag team partner is. They said it, but I don't know who it was.
And it's so, yeah, I'm really curious on Jackson's. That's an interesting name they used.
Robert Anthony?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, Cat's kind of out of the bag, but Robert Anthony is actively on the roster now.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then that takes us to the next match, which I affectionately refer to this tag team as the Golden Sun. Golden Sun taking on the Cunt Gents. It was a non-title match. The Country Gentlemen.
I don't think you can say that and keep your monetized. Stay monetized.
I'm
abbreviating
the word country.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it that way. Did you not hear yourself?
No, I think it's funnier each time I look at the camera with a blank expression.
Okay. No, it's not.
I'm laughing. So this match, again, not a bad match. Actually, I kind of enjoyed it, which is weird because, I don't like throwing together tag teams. That's kind of a pet peeve for mine. There's enough people on the roster that you can come up with a tag team. I know Kratos was hurt in New Japan. Kratos was in New Japan on July 4th as part of their big show and wasn't able to make it in time for the show to get medically cleared and all that stuff. He got busted open pretty bad in New Japan. Okay, so then that brings us we lost Jaden. That brings us to the Country Gentlemen. Again, non-title match. They come out, and the Country Gentlemen have metamorphosized over the last few months. It started off with AJ Cazana, who is from Knoxville, Tennessee, coming out with a cowboy hat. Okay, all right, I'm good with that. He full on fledges cosplaying as Terry Funk in his run in the WWE. DK said offline more like Jimmy Jack Funk, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. He looked a little out of place. It looked different, and I don't mind it honestly. It's why he was fine with the way he is. You're trying to make him more of a Texas gentleman than a Southern gentleman, and I don't know if I understand the reasoning behind that. Another good match where there's a lot of back and forth. I really feel like Jordan Clearwater had his working boots on because he was doing a very good job of teaming with Odinson. It seemed like they had teamed together more than once because they were kind of on the same page, although it was a lot of there we go. Sorry, I thought my camera went out. A lot of good back and forth in this matchup. Clean victory for the Golden Suns. And I like this match, but I feel like what seeds are you planting, Billy, that your U.S. Tag Team Champions who lost at the Crockett Cup, obviously they didn't win it, and now losing to a makeshift tag team? I mean, what precedent are you setting up for the 75th? I know they don't have opponents quite announced yet, but DK, your thoughts?
Well, we know Billy hates tag teams, and this kind of showed it. In isolation, I still didn't like this match.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hate it.
Okay.
I was more indifferent to it. And sometimes indifference is worse. But yeah, I didn't get, especially since it was a makeshift tag team, it was like they had a plan to put Odinson and Kratos over. And it's like, oh, Kratos is hurt. Well, okay, we'll just put someone else in there randomly, but they're still going to go over. It's like, okay, maybe you make an audible there and change it. But yeah, Billy's just like a tag teams. We've seen the World Tag Team Champions lose a Crockett Cup.
Yeah.
The U.S. Tag Team Champions lose a Crockett Cup. And then in this set of tapings, both have lost. And not only have both lost, but both lost to teams that they shouldn't have.
Agreed.
And so, and then you wonder why it's hard to, you know, talk about their tag team situation and everything, because it's like, you know, this is why you need a team like Murdoch's, because they could have good tag team matches with some teams and then clobber all the others, and then they're believable as top guys. But you know, now we've got both of your champions have lost non-title matches that they shouldn't have lost, and I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. And so, I mean, I can only chalk this up as, you know, the Billy hates tag team things.
Yeah.
And before anyone from NWA or former NWA associates starts messaging Jay going, Billy has deep respect for tag teams, I mean, it doesn't come through. I'm sorry.
No, I wouldn't humor that conversation.
I mean, just like Marquez said, oh, they have plans. They have plans. Well, it doesn't come across.
Let's see. The end, gone, right?
Right.
They ended them?
They ended the end.
That was good.
In the end, they ended the end.
The War Kings, gone.
Split.
Now, obviously, they were a makeshift tag team, but Kratos and Stevens, done. Right?
Right.
It's too early to say Kratos and Odinson, but seemingly done. Clearwater. Go ahead.
Latimer and Adonis.
Yeah. But they didn't end on a negative note, though. Like, they weren't split up. They just started pursuing other things. When Aldis left, he kind of took the strictly business thing with him.
Well, what about Latimer and Royce Isaacs?
I see, and I don't blame Billy for that either, because Isaacs took better opportunities to go elsewhere.
Apparently, just nobody wants a team with Latimer.
There might be some truth to that.
Next up, we get May Valentine in the back with Dak Draper. One thing I did notice this week is no backstage segments with
Kyle Davis.
Yes, thank you, Kyle Davis. And Dak Draper's on his phone. He's texting the hospital. He's messaging to make sure that his boy Mims gets the best care he can. This felt very disingenuous and very artificial, which also makes me feel like maybe this is a plan going forward, that maybe Dak's kind of greased the palm of Blake Bulletproof Troop to hurt Mims. I mean, that's a way they're going to build that storyline and break up that tag team. I don't know. It just felt very disingenuous. But then he mentioned that he's going to go out there. He's got opportunity to wrestle Chris Adonis next week. And I think this might be a national title qualifying match or something. DK, what did you think of this promo? Did you watch this one?
I did. Again, I'm not sure why I didn't fast forward. Draper came across as heelish.
Yeah, very much so, right?
And so there was, they've already suggested there's friction between the two, that they don't agree on things and everything like that. So, and we know Billy loves to split up tag teams. He likes to put tag teams together so he can split them up. I mean, So I'm assuming that's where they're going.
I hope every Crockett Cup tag team next year breaks up after they wrestle.
Yeah. You're predicting the future here.
Make it a 32 team match, have like a 6-hour pre-show, and every single tag team breaks up, especially the winners.
All right, before I get to the main event, because you said the magic word pre-show, I know that we are now at July 27th as we're recording this, which means there's less than a month between now and the 75th anniversary show. I know for a fact that the Bocca Raton show was, well, I don't know for a fact. I have it on high authority that the Bocca Raton show was taped for a distribution later. And I know that the HB Cares for Cooper charity event was also taped for later distribution. We also know that there will be 4 events mixed in with the Smashing Pumpkins The World is a Vampire tour, that the NWA will be on tour with Smashing Pumpkins. We know that's August, I think it's August 17th, 18th, 19th, and 22nd. Basically, there's 2 dates in Florida, Tampa, and I have it written down here. I'll just look at the notes. That would be the smart thing. Huntsville, Alabama, West Palm Beach, Florida, Tampa, Florida, and Charlotte, August 17th, 19th, 20th, 22nd. My question for both of you and those of you who are watching in the chat.
No, I won't be attending.
Do you think those events will be recorded for distribution on Power? And do you think we will see any of those combination events, both the World is a Vampire and the Bocca Raton and HB Cares for Cooper? Do we think that we'll see those matches before the 75th anniversary show?
No and no.
Yes, I think the shows will be recorded. No, I don't think we'll see them before the 75th. If I can be honest, I'm not quite.
No, please be a liar and make it sound great.
Oh, okay. I'll take Jason's thing. No, I think it'll be wonderful. I think it makes perfect sense, and I think that it'll really clarify things, and it's the most wonderful idea that's ever been had by mankind. But the reality,
totally out of this.
But the reality is, I'm not sure why they recorded some of the stuff, because it doesn't mesh in well with where they put it when they're showing it. It's just, it comes across very obvious. Well, we don't have any other content, so here, let's show you this stuff we recorded a month ago.
Well, so for HB Cares for Cooper, as I mentioned earlier, those matches did have some implications potentially for the Crockett, or I keep saying Crockett, for the 75th anniversary show. Specifically if, with my brain's not working, with Thom Latimer having defended the title both at the HB Cares for Cooper, defeating Jay Bradley on that show, and then defeating Noah Kakoa at the Bocca Raton show. Both of those have implications for 75th if they choose to air it that way. If they don't choose to air it that way, then it feels like those matches are way out of place coming after the Crockett Cup. Because look here, I'll just go through the card real quick if you guys don't mind. The 2 shows that have already happened, you had at the Bocca Raton Championship Wrestling, you had Knox and Murdoch defeat the Island Kings. You had Joe Alonzo lose a match to Cha-Cha Charlie. Thom Latimer defended his world title, a TV title, against Noah Kakoa. Cesar Bononi showed up. Cesar Bononi, you guys might see him in AEW. Pretty Empowered was there. Silas Mason loses an all-star title match. Kerry Morton has a successful title defense. Then the HB Cares for Cooper. Fodder wins a match against Eric Jackson and Gags the Gimp. Ruthie J defeats Angelina Love. Maybe I shouldn't be giving all these results out. Anyways, the Country Gentlemen defended tag titles against the Savages. M95 defended the titles against Pretty in Power. Hell, even EC3 defended the national title against Jordan Clearwater. That match right now seems irrelevant because they didn't, he's no longer the national champion. I feel like they really missed the ball on that. They could have had that national title match on Power before he relinquished the title,
Well, look, even in we talked about this with some of their episodes and already, is that a lot of things seem to be presented out of order.
Yeah.
We have the Southern Six talking together, but then when the match between Thrillbilly and EC3 happens, he's out there with Pollo and there's no sign of the Southern Six. Again, they talk about the greatness of the Southern Six, then they put Alex Taylor out with just Danny Deals, and he loses.
Yeah.
And, nobody's there, and there's nobody help. There's no beat down afterwards, and it's just like, what's going on? And so it's like this group came together in Australia, and they haven't figured out the right way to introduce them yet in the U.S. because they're doing whatever they had planned, if they plan anything, or their plans just don't match up, which the way I tend to think. And so it doesn't work. And, they've done this before where they, when they had that one tournament where they announced basically who was in the finals before they finished showing the tournament, on the show. And it's just.
And nobody got fired for that.
Not that I know of. Well, it was
That's because they didn't make any chicken jokes.
Aww. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. And so, anyway. I don't know. What else happened on the show, Jay? Did anything else happen?
So then we get the main event of Kerry Morton defending his World Junior Heavyweight title against Matt Vine. Most recently, we've seen Matt Vine being kind of a sidekick with the Fixers. The match was actually pretty good. I didn't see a whole lot of, or I didn't see any outside interference. Ricky Morton didn't show up. It was a regular, straight up title match, and Kerry looked good. Matt Vine looked good. Again, I say this in a vacuum. This was a fine match. No sign of the Southern Six. No Alex Taylor. No Silas Mason. It was a little weird, knowing again just what you said, how the Southern Six have been presented on television thus far. But I thought it was a fine match. Kerry Morton gets another feather in the cap, and that's how we end Power. DK, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yep, that ended Power.
You don't like it?
Okay, they're billing this as a world title match. So we don't know why Matt Vines is getting a world title match. It goes 4 minutes. If that long. And like there's no story set up from it. Two wrestlers had a match. It could have been for a title. It could have not been for a title. It wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah, it was a tomato can. It was the bum of the month.
Kind of. I mean, the whole idea is that Matt Lyons kind of get picked on by the Fixers. And, they're not even out there to mock him afterwards. There wasn't a reason for the match. There certainly wasn't a reason for him to have a world title match. And then it wasn't like a nice, good, solid 10-minute match that, you can go, hey, Vines look good or whatever. Kerry's supposed to be more of the egotistical but somewhat chicken shit heel. And, that didn't take place here either. So, yeah, no Southern Six, no Fixers, no reason for this match to be a world title match. This should have just been an enhancement match for Kerry.
I will say this though, if this matchup here leads to a Fixers versus Southern 6, now you're cooking.
That's a lot of dreaming.
I'm just saying, like Silas Mason, thrill riding, Jesus. Wrecking Ball. Thank you. I think that'd be fun to see. That's a
if
big
he's going
deal.
to throw ride anyone, please let him throw ride Ricky.
Ricky Kerry's manager, Kerry's dad.
Yes.
And with that, we're going to end this night's episode of the Alliance Guys podcast. First, I want to say thanks to everyone who's been with us in the chat. You guys are much appreciated. If you haven't made your plans to do so yet, why don't you join us down in St. Louis on the 26th, 27th, 28th? I don't know. You guys have a calendar. You can look. I'm going to be down there on Friday night, the 25th. Hope to meet some of you guys. Do some sightseeing. Have some burgers, barbecues, booze, beer, all that good stuff. I know that our pal Dave Scooby will be there. I know that Sam Retro in the chat's going to be there. I know Luthez will be there. I know a couple other guys from our Discord are going to be there. You should be there too. If you haven't already made your plans, do so now. We'll be there. What'd you say?
Nope.
I do want to address one thing from the chat. What would Luthez do? Says, I think talking about the taping, you'll see a bunch of consequential filler matches. James H. Jackson Jr. agrees. Seems to me it's filler for when they run out of content. Unfortunately, to me, that's what these TV tapings seem to be. I mean, they seem to be more filler matches than advancing any storyline matches so far.
All right. Let's continue with the close of the show. Jaden, I know that Dr. Lawrence Zirconium has his paws on everything, if you will. What's going on with Dog, and where can folks see them in action next?
Well, we officially know what the cause for the pause is, because Dog will be taking part of Pause for the Cause on Friday evening, October 6th, in not so beautiful part of, actually, no, it's a park, so it's actually a really nice, beautiful part of Glassboro, New Jersey, just not rustic at all.
Not rustic.
No. But it's actually going to be for the Gloucester County Animal Shelter.
Oh, nice.
They're raising money so we can help this dog can help some dogs in need.
So dogs helping dogs, and that's what the world needs more of.
Yeah, it's a dog-eat-dog world. Which, by the way, never mind. Anyway, so there is going to be, I edited myself there, be glad. There's going to be, currently signed is WWGP Heavyweight Champion Chris Steeler.
I like that guy. He's a good guy. I mean, not a nice guy, but he's a good wrestler.
He's a very good wrestler. Yes, he is. And he will be defending the WWGP Championship. The Dog Tag Team Champions, Patch and Vinny the Fixer, the Old School Empire, will be in action. I believe Ty Thomas is signed to be part of the card. Marvelous. He is taking the Dog Wrestling World by storm, and he is going to be part of it. There's going to be a lot of really good professional wrestlers, and of course, Daredevil Dave Dahl will be there.
Awesome.
It's a free event, and it's going to be
all the glorious wrestlers.
What was that?
They can't be all glorious and great wrestlers.
Yes, we have to have somebody on there so they have a contrast, so they know what good wrestling looks like and what bad wrestling looks like. If you're all good, if you have everybody that's good, then nobody's good. That's why we have Dave Dahl, so everybody looks better.
And you can find out more about Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators by visiting their website, dogprowrestling.com. They're also on YouTube, and just type in DAWG on your social media. You can find them just about anywhere on Instagram, Facebook, and for the meantime, are we calling Twitter X now? Is that the thing?
I'm not.
Okay, then find them on Twitter. DKM. If folks would like to follow you on the social medias, how do they do that?
Get a life. At DKM FWTX, I think on all major and a few minor social media platforms.
If you want to make DK less yelly yet cloudy, send him videos of amateur wrestlers and people getting hurt. He seems to enjoy them.
Especially when it's little kids. He definitely gets a kick out of that.
There's quite a few in his inbox when he gets a chance to check him out tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to check them out. I sent one really good wrestling one.
I saw that one here.
Two ladies wrestling there.
Better than most men. Real quick, DK, I'm going to say this before we go.
I got to tell the story first.
All right.
Jaden sent me one of a little 2.5-year-old, 3-year-old wrestling with his, maybe 6 or 7-year-old big brother. And they do this lockup, and it was more convincing than what you'll see on almost all pro wrestling TV these days. So if you actually remember when wrestling was good, go watch some amateur wrestling. Because it's still good. They wrestle 6-7 minutes, and there's more blood and guts and glory than anything you'll find on TV.
Yep. So guys, make sure you check us out next week. Maybe we'll have a guest so it'll interfere so we don't have to talk about power anymore.
And if there's a wrestler out there that's watching this and would like to come on, please slide in the DMs. We love to talk to you. I do have Jarrell Clark, former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, scheduled to be on.
450.
Yeah, and no, not 450. It was greater than 450. I think it was like 630.
Mr. 1000, Jarrell Clark. We're going to keep him rotating.
I'll have it right before he comes on the podcast, but we'll be doing that on, I believe, the second week of August, so stay tuned for that. And we are having some feelers out there for more talent to come on the show to talk some NWA, talk wrestling in general. So I hope you guys tune in for that. Hey, we've got content coming at you on all social medias, TikTok, Twitter, Threads, Instagram, Facebook. The website's super active. Go check it out. Lamb just did a great interview with a Southern California talent, Brandon Devine. Check that out on alliance-wrestling.com. And then Tuesday, we'll be here doing the pre-party. If you want to help support the show, you can check out our title sponsor, Dubby, as they are the ones that give us the the non-jitter energy drink. I highly recommend it. Especially my favorite flavor is the Big Energy Tears. No sugars. It's a delicious replacement for your canned energy drinks. And then also we have T-shirts available on the merch store. New shirts are coming in daily. We have a great new logo that features the Alliance mask. We'll debut that mask, that Lucha mask, at I say Crockett Company at the 75. So make sure you come out and check out the Alliance. Buy a shirt if you want one. And until next time, guys, we'll see you at the matches.
Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.